students, it's Mr. Boyd. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to estimate irrational numbers. So we're going to jump right down here to the first I do question. And the question is, estimate the square root of 8 using a number line. So first thing we need to think of is, what two perfect squares does the square root of 8 fall between? Well, the next smallest perfect square is 4. And we know that the square root of 4 is 2. And then the next largest one would be 9. So 5, 8, 9. And we know the square root of 9 is 3. So as we look at this, can we say that the square root of 8 is closer to 9? So a good estimate would be about 2.8. So let's see what that turns out to be on the calculator. So if we do the square root of 8, we end up with 2.82. So 2.8 was a relatively close guess or estimate. So when we look at the square root of 27, we'll do the same thing. Let's see here. Let's take this off of here. So 5 is going to be the square root of 25. And then the square root of 26, square root of 27, square root of 28, and right on up, square root of 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, need to add on to our number line, square root of 34, 35, and then our next perfect square is 36. So that's going to give us 6. Let's extend that number line out there just a bit. Okay, so we're looking for the square root of 27. So we can see that it's just slightly larger than the square root of 25, which is 5. So I would say a good estimate of this one would be about 5.2. All right, now let's use our calculator and see what we end up getting for that one, the square root of 27. So we can just back up here and put in 27. And the square root of 27 is 5.19, which is pretty close to 5.2. Okay, let's skip on down here. So next we're going to just use our calculator. So we're going to estimate the square root of 83 to the nearest integer. So what is the square root of 83 using our calculator? So jumping right over here, we're going to back up here and we're going to find square root of 83. Oh. And that's going to be 9.1104. And it says to round this to the nearest integer. So the nearest integer would be this place value right here. So as we look at that 1, we see that it is below 5, so this would round to 9. So that rounds to 9 being the closest integer. All right, how about the negative square root of 13? So the negative square root of 13 is going to be, jump over here to our calculator, and 13 is 3.6055. Don't forget to put that negative in front of it, negative 3.6055. Okay, and then if we round that to the 10th place, that's going to be negative 3.6, because this is our 10th place. Okay, I recommend you pause the video and try the next. Now we're going to estimate the square root of 103 to the nearest integer. So I could use my calculator here and would find out that the square root of 103 is 10 point something. But if you do a little common sense here, you'll notice that 103 is really close to 100. And since we are rounding to the nearest integer, I know that the square root of 100 is the integer 10. So if I estimate the square root of 103 to the nearest integer, that would also be 10. All right, next we're going to estimate the square root of 52 to the nearest tenth. Now this one I think I will go ahead and use my calculator on just to make sure. Since I'm rounding to the tenth place, 7.211. 7.211. So then that's going to round to approximately 7.2 if we round it to the tenth place. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our next group of problems. Notice that now we are throwing in some addition and subtraction and multiplication here. So here we're going to estimate 1 minus the square root of 8 to the nearest integer. So the square root of 83 is, let's go back to our calculator. 83 is, square root of 83 is 9.11. So that's going to be 1 minus 9.11. And so let's go ahead and put that in there. 1 minus, that's going to be negative 8.11. But if we're going to round that to the nearest integer, then we're going to round it to negative 8. Okay, if we estimate 4 times the square root of 13, four times the square root of 13 is going to be 14.422. And since we're rounding to the nearest tenth place, that's going to be approximately 14.4. All right, again, pause the video and try the next two, and then I'll be back with the solution. Back, so now we are going to do 4 minus the square root of 3. So I'm going to change my multiplication to a subtraction and my square root of 13 to 3. And I see that's going to give me 2.268. And this says to round to the nearest integer. So I see that I've got a 2 in the tenths place, so this is going to round to the integer 2. And last we will do 0.5 times the square root of 52. I think we've already done the square root of 52 back up the page here, so that was 7.211. Let's go ahead and put it in our calculator. Let's see, we're going to do 0.5 times the square root of 52, and that's going to be 3.61. And if we're estimating to the nearest tenth, then we would say that is approximately 3.6. Going to go back over here and change some of my equal signs to approximation symbols. So instead of a regular equal sign, you put this little curvy typed equal sign since we rounded those numbers. And so that should be good. All right. Hope this was helpful, and see you in the next video or back in the classroom. You guys have a good night.